want to make a nice little tease at the end of the meeting for you, so thank you. Joan, electronics
I'm wearing a
work.
cowboy hat today in honor of the rodeo.
Yes, sir. But you see,
I've got
I'm
my
not
virtual
video.
hat on.
I'm not video conferencing today, but I'm here, everybody. Hello. Happy Friday.
Hi, Joan.
I see Pat in the cute hat. Love it.
Wish we were at the rodeo though.
Oh, yeah.
That was a great birthday picture of you too, Pat.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so wow. Your birthdays, you're looking 10 years younger with your birthdays. How do you do that?
Thank you.
Yeah, look great. Good. Who else is up here? Okay. Sure. Wellness.
Oh, Their sales. Yeah. Next year, boss.
So Doug, how are you doing?
Great.
Good, good. Doing anything fun and interesting?
That's probably the less than great part of it.
Well, we'll have to do
I
something
haven't
about
been out of the house in a year to speak
Oh.
of, except to go to the bank and dry cleaners.
it. Oh.
It's
God.
important to keep the clothing, dry cleaners in business, yes.
I just like to make a comment. Something I hope to do for the club. I keep hearing about ways that people are raising ridiculous amounts of money online. And I'm currently over my head in business right now, but I'm going to, as my service to the club, see if I can parlay my pets training and come up with some way to replace the funds from the Colo Guard and the rodeo, maybe in a smaller way, but that's what I intend to do as my service for the club, besides recruiting invokers.
That's great. That's great, John.
Welcome, Mr. Buckley.
Hello, how are you?
My goodness gracious, I've never seen so much water.
Who else is on here?
Anita, I like your background.
Do you like my background? It's just weird. Sometimes it gets the whole picture and sometimes it doesn't. But anyway, those are the 4 priorities of Rotary.
Wow.
So we'll have a test on it next week. I won't have my picture. Good. And who else is here? And there's Sharon Wellness. There's Andre.
Hi, Audrey.
Hello, how are you guys?
Hey.
Great.
Anita, you're not the next one in. That's that other lady that visited us. You're
Right.
2 years out.
I'm 2 years out or 18 months out or something. I'm just out. But
Oh
no,
my God.
yeah, no, Hank Huskins is the district governor elect, and so she'll be starting in July.
I think I've met her at a district event, perhaps the one down in Tubac,
Yes,
but everybody was new to me at the time. So
she's a really, really neat, very good person, and she'll do a great job. She's out of Sierra Vista.
I'm so glad that Southern Arizona has finally figured out that women are who makes it really happen.
Was there ever any doubt?
Well,
You know,
my experience with you guys is somewhat newer, but I don't know how to answer that. Same in Southern California, they figured it out.
Yeah.
with that in mind, you notice we haven't seen Joan in a long time.
Yes, well, she's staying permanently in hiding. She's
Well,
just
you
here.
know, you want to be influential, you might as well show up.
Well, speaking of women,
It would be frightening and disturbing if I did that in person, but I'm here in spirit and voice.
Speaking of women, I see that Liz person walking behind you every now and then, Sharon. Hey, Liz, say hello.
Welcome, Liz.
Hello.
Oh my God, she's really there.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, guys. I miss all of you. Miss
Oh.
Miss you.
That's great. Good.
Okey-dokey.
Hey, Sharon, how about those Wolverines? Are you enjoying them too?
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
Tony.
blue.
Sorry.
Yeah. Absolutely go blue. Yeah, sorry, Tony.
Notice Tony is not even saying
Sorry.
anything.
And sorry, Kurz. Let's see, who else do we have to? We don't have to say sorry.
Okey-dokey. We are
They
now
have
at a little bit past
It's
10
fun while it
after.
lasts, anyway.
Hey, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see. Welcome our speaker for today. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody, and then we'll do the pledge. And then I believe Anita is going to do the invocation for us today. So, okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anita, if you could unmute yourself and
There we go. Good. Well, most evenings I kind of listen to the evening news, and like most of you, I hear the latest in the pandemic challenges and the social unrest, and more recently, the devastation of the weather that has had across the country and on people and their lives. And I sit there and I think to myself, I can remember, not having water at certain times of my life, or being glad there were wood burning stoves, but I can't even begin to imagine what it must be like not to have food and water and heat and shelter. And, and then I turn off the news and I go out and I sit and I look at the sunset and I sit there and enjoy, the nature and how beautiful it is and what a beautiful day we've had. And probably like many of you, I sit there and I ask myself, well, now what can I do? It just seems so uneven in this world. So I wanted to just share with you some words today from our own Paul Harris and from Dr. Loretta Scott. Let us pray and offer thanks for our blessings, including the blessings of one another. Let us be a source of hope for those in need and contentment for those who are lonely. And let us give gratitude for our opportunity as Rotarians to serve others. And let the feelings of love and kindness and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. We can't help everyone, but we certainly can help someone. Thank you.
thank you, Anita. And it's so very true. We might not be able to go out, grab a lot of folks, but if we can just help one other person, we're doing good. So yeah, something to remember. We have our we have our speaker. I see Daniel Buckley. Let's see who else we got visiting. Merle, everything doing okay? Probably a little cold up that your way, but good to see you. And let's see who else we've got. I see Mr. Stoft is here, which is good to see. Hope he's recovering. Elise, good to see you're here. Allison, I apologize about your traffic messes up there. at that part of town. And Matt, you too, same way. Stay away from Swan and Skyline and all that mess. I apologize. Not my doings, but I know some of the headaches that you guys are involved with. So with that, I was gonna say the other thing, they did open it up to age 65. I don't know how any of that's going, if in, but I do know they're somewhat limited on things, but make sure if you can get signed up and then probably wait for your email to come back so you can get through with that. Tony, you got a comment? You see any updates what you have?
Yeah, so as I reported, I think last week, I got into the state pod last week, and I got my first dose yesterday at the U of A mall. And I can tell you, they've got that that distribution humming like clockwork. I was there 25 minutes, and it just kept moving, and it's really doing well. So that's the state site that U of A has pretty much given up to the state. And they scheduled my second dose before I left, and it just very smooth. So keep an eye on that state website. I suspect there may be another batch coming this coming Tuesday. That seems to be when they put them online and available. So just keep an eye out. I put the website address for the state site into chat last week. I'll do it again today. And if you have any other questions, just email me. I'll be happy to tell you whatever it is I know.
Thank you, Tony. I was going to say, also, you can go to the county site. You know, I don't know if you'll have much luck. Al?
I just wanted to add, thank you, add to Tony. I went through the same system there at the U of A mall, and it's just like clockwork.
Yeah.
Took me online about another 5 minutes to get an appointment for the second shot. And there were many appointment slots available, probably into March, maybe the start of April, but they're there. It's really a piece of cake.
Yeah, pay attention there. Also, maybe the county, I don't know if it's as well run as it's, but I will say that if you can, I got my second shot down at TCC on Wednesday, and once you get your appointment in and so on like that, the second one is just, they got it figured out as far as logistics and so on like that. So it's just a matter of getting in the queue and then making sure you can get through it things. So other than that, everything else is fairly quiet. Rodeo was quiet this week, and it looks like they're playing golf out at the golf course, but not a lot of people being around there. I think they're working in twosomes, 6 foot apart, or threesomes. But yeah, so unfortunately, it is what it is. I was going to say, Joan, you may want to also talk. Barb has been looking, and Pete have been looking at some fundraising things too. So they may be a communication based on your comments before we kind of started on the meeting. So welcome to Jimmy. I see you're calling in probably by phone. So hope everything's going okay for all the little ones. And welcome to Andrew. Good to see you, our newest member of the club. So Pat, I hope you're enjoying the nice warm weather we got here. You didn't get nailed with all the snowstorms up that way that went through probably the past 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah, I heard my daughter's in New York City, and she says, yeah, they've gotten a little bit of snow off and on, cold weather. So it's nice to be here in the West. So with that, we talked about that, health check stuff. I'm going to go ahead and move right into Mr. Nortonson, who is going to introduce our speaker for today. And I think it's really going to be kind of neat to see. We've all, some of us are transplants, some of us are actual, have lived here and born here and raised. So it's going to be interesting to get this perspective. I'm looking forward to this talk. So go ahead, go for it, Jeff.
Thank you, President Paul. I got here actually not as a native, but when I was 1.5 years old on Arizona Admissions Day in 1948. My first job here, interestingly enough, the speaker brought all of this to mind. My first job in radio was for a 250 watt AM radio station that played music of the 30s and 40s and was also talk radio. When I first got on the air, I was playing music. The other people were doing some of the talk radio, and there was a guy who came every once in a while who was a terrific storyteller. His name was John Gilcrease, and he was an Arizona historian and absolutely terrific storyteller. And today, Catalina Rotary is honored to continue that tradition because we have Daniel Buckley for our speaker. He started in upstate New York. I checked this morning, and next Monday, it's supposed to be 38 degrees in Rochester as a high and 14 for low. So he came here, which was his first indication he was smarter than most of us. That's a good thing. He came to study lunar geology. He got a side job in a record store, which got him exposed to things that he never understood until then. But most of all, he came to us with an inquisitive mind and a great capacity for storytelling. He's written about and performed in the creative arts for more than 40 years. He spent 23 years at the Tucson Citizen as a writer, editorial board member, and all-around good guy. But they closed that in after 23 years of Daniel's tenure there. What he did next was start to make documentary films about the living history in the Native American and Mexican American communities. And of course, with that kind of a mind, he got way more involved than most people do. In 2013, he was the first Anglo inducted into Mariachi Hall of Fame of the Tucson International Mariachi Conference. He was the Artist of the Year at the 2014 Arizona Governor's Arts Award. And not only does he know what he's talking about, he tells a terrific story. So Daniel Buckley, it's yours.
Thank you. Thank you. What a beautiful introduction. And I will just tell you up front, half the lies I tells you are not true. Glad to be here today, and thank you so much for having me. I have to upfront cop to some very unexpected difficulties. The good folks at Microsoft Office decided to change everything last week. And so the beautiful PowerPoint presentation with all the photos and everything that I put together would not transfer to my device that I am talking to you on. So at some point, I'll try and send that along to everyone. In the meantime, you'll just have to look at my hairy old mug, and deepest apologies for that. Tell you a little bit about myself beyond what Jeff mentioned there. I did, in fact, come here in 1971. This is my 50th year in Tucson. Came to study the geology of the moon. This was one of two places in the country at that point that allowed one to study those sort of things. And I actually got to be an intern on the last moon landing, which was really quite amazing. And on our way back from Houston, my major professor, a fellow by the name of Ewan Whitaker, said to me, "We're probably never going to go back to the moon again in your lifetime, and you should figure out something else to do with your life." And of course, at first I didn't believe him because, I couldn't believe that we'd spent 10 years and God knows how much money to plant a couple flags and walk away. But apparently that's what we did. And so in those days, it was incredibly cheap to go to the University of Arizona. I think I paid about $135 a semester. And so I took anything and everything that I possibly could. And radio and television classes, art, music, history, you name it. And those things, oddly enough, became sort of my life. One of the most important things that happened during my time in college was I took a job in a record store in Elkhorn. The place was called Record Bar. It was a little tiny place that dealt mostly in back catalog, older recordings, and classical music, jazz, mariachi music, everything basically we carried in that store. And why it was so formative was the University of Arizona campus is wonderful. You meet people from around the world in your classes and so on, but you really don't get to know the community at all. And so when I went to work in, record stores, everyone loves music. So I met everyone from policemen and firemen and doctors and lawyers and prostitutes and you name it. Everybody buys music. I met them all. And it ended up being really a great place to learn. I would say probably half of our clientele was from South Tucson or from south of the border. And the wonderful thing about having somebody come into a record store is you turn them on to one thing, they turn you on to 20. And so I had a lot of teachers from all over and very wide backgrounds. My specialty was classical music at that point, only because no one else knew anything about it, and I knew a modicum. That's kind of where I would put it. But over the years, that became my specialty. When I went to work for the Tucson Citizen in 1987, I sat down with Don Hatfield, who was the publisher at that point, one of the most wonderful men I've ever known. And Don said to me, well, what are you going to be doing this year? And I told him, well, I'll be covering the symphony and the chamber music and the opera and the mariachi conference. And he looked at me like I was from Mars and said, why would you do that? And I said, well, I'm glad you asked because I bought tickets for you and Sandy and you're coming with me. And so I brought them to the mariachi conference the following spring, knowing that both of them were huge opera fans. And sure enough, 15 minutes in, Don is elbowing me and saying, this is an opera company. And really, mariachi it's a chamber orchestra, chamber opera company. The singing style is based on the Italian bel canto. It is just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And it's so immediately engaging. People used to say to me, well, your Spanish isn't that good. And I'm like, yeah, well, neither is my Russian, but sometimes you have to cover Boris Godunov, and that's what translations are for. And you learn after a while, little bits of it start rubbing off and so on. My own association with mariachis goes back to when I was in college. When I got here in 71, I am from a very multicultural town in the Hudson Valley in New York State. I would say probably a third to half of the population is African American. And that's just kind of how when I arrived in Tucson and saw that this was also a very multicultural town, I was thrilled. I felt right at home until I went to the U of A. And on the campus, it was shocking how few Mexican Americans my age there were. There were some watering the lawn. There were some working in the cafeteria. There was not a large number. And my roommate was from Patagonia and had many, many friends in Nogales. And so I was going to places like El Casino Ballroom with them and going to the border and seeing a lot of the cultural things there and really enjoying that. But that's not the experience that I had on campus. And it kind of stuck in my head. Fast forward to a couple of years ago when I went to film Hispanic graduation, and they were only allowing family members 2 people to get into the hall because there were so many graduates. That's a heck of a change. And I would like to think that youth mariachis have a role in that, or had a part in that. And while I was working at the Citizen, I was watching the town change in front of my eyes, in part because of these youth mariachis. And I'll get into that a little bit here now. First, let me just start by saying, when you go to make a film, you always think that you know what the story is, and you're always wrong. And the people that you will interview will set you straight. They're very polite about the whole thing, but they can. The way I describe it is when I worked for the Citizen, you had a day to turn out a story. So you'd call somebody up and you'd ask them a bunch of questions, and you'd take the parts where they talked about what they were supposed to, and you'd write up your story. Well, you go to interview with someone for a film, and no one ever stays on topic, never. And it used to drive me crazy because I would, have to transcribe all of this. And then after 4 or 5 people started telling me the same off-topic story, I realized I was the one who was off topic, and that I just needed to shut the hell up and let them talk. And this film, so far, we filmed for 9 years before I'm now in the middle of editing the film. And so much happened over that 9 years. And it has become so obvious that I really did not comprehend how enormous the impact of this was, and how it infiltrated so many things. So let me start at the beginning, and I'll just tell you one other thing before I go too much further. There was an interview I did with the woman who was the former librarian at Davis Elementary School, Davis Bilingual Elementary, where they have a mariachi program for kids starting practically first grade all the way through. And when these kids leave in 5th and 6th grade, you just can't believe what incredible musicians they are, how fluently bilingual they are, and just, the promise. And I always, I'll be watching these kids, and I'll be pointing out, like, okay, this kid is going to Mariachi Aztlan at Pueblo High School, and this kid is going to end up at Tucson High. And this, I can pretty much pick them out, and then 10 years later, watch it happen. It's amazing. But this librarian said something to me that utterly changed everything about how I approached the film and book. And that is, she said, children are agents of change. What a profound thing. Never really looked at it that way before, but they are. And I can't get it out of my head ever since. I'll be at a show and I'll see parents that are, who really never had much interest in the community, suddenly out there and being part of it, and rubbing shoulders with people that they would never have met any other way, becoming involved in the board of these mariachis, and then ending up on the boards of other community organizations and getting involved in other things and obtaining their voice in the community. Just look at how we are as a city at the moment. Our mayor, Regina Romero, is a mariachi mom. Our congressman is a mariachi tata. It's so part of our community. It's just astonishing, really and truly so. And so this film and book is really about how the entire fabric of Tucson has changed socially, politically, economically, artistically and educationally as a result of youth mariachis that began here in Tucson. And when I say they began here in Tucson, that's for real. The first youth mariachi in America was Tucson's Los Changuitos Feos, the ugly little monkeys. And that was a group that started in 1964 by an Irish Catholic priest by the name of Charles Rourke. And Father Rourke was a very charismatic guy. He was a jazz pianist. He'd actually been somebody who used to back up Sarah Vaughan, and he played with Artie Shaw's orchestra. And he had chops. He was definitely a great musician. And Father Rourke got stationed in Tucson. And one Sunday afternoon in the rectory, he hears this sound coming down the corridor. And he goes, and my friend, the late Monsignor Carrillo, tells me this story. It was his door that the mariachi music was pouring out of. And apparently Chuck Rourke banged on his door. And according to Monsignor, he said that Father Rourke said, "What the hell is that?" And then the Monsignor said, he used a different word, but it had as many letters. So it's good to know that that priests are, human beings. What can we say? At any rate, what Chuck Rourke heard in that music was something that was very complex in the way that jazz is. Layer upon layer upon layer of rhythms and beautiful melodies. And he immediately grasped how relatable the music was and what it meant to people. And it kind of, fished around in his head for a while. And he started the Catholic Youth Organization to teach the boys how to, play the guitar and things of that nature. And soon it graduated into a mariachi. Now, mind you, this is in the basement of a church. And Chuck Rourke is teaching the boys from the piano how to play mariachi music. And at the same time, trying to figure out how to play the guitarrón, which I think he strung backwards the first time. There are all kinds of stories of poor Father Rourke trying to get this. Their first gig, Seal Peterson told me about their first gig. She was there and she said to me, "They were horrible. They were horrible." And she said, "But they got better. They got much better." And they really did. They became, these young boys became like really consummate musicians. Father Rourke used to tell them, you can be cute for 5 minutes and then after that you have to know how to play. And they learned. They really learned. He was a hard taskmaster. He really got on them, but boy, they learned. And you think about this, 1964 was the days of segregation in America and in Tucson. And while it was subtle here, it was real. When I talked to elders in the Mexican American community, one fellow was telling me about a popular ballroom that they used to love to go to. And pardon me, he said, Sunday was our day. And I said, Sunday? He said, yeah, Sunday we had the whole place to ourselves. What he was telling me was Monday through Saturday, they were not allowed. And another person, one of the board members of the mariachi conference, told me about how when she was a little girl, she went into a shoe store and sat in the empty shoe store for 45 minutes and no one would wait on her because she was Mexican. At the Fox Theater, they used to have what they called the brown bag rule. If your skin was darker than a brown paper bag, you sat upstairs. These were just some of the things that was daily life in Tucson. And, nowhere near what one would experience in Alabama or, Texas or places like that, but real stuff was going on. And so this is what these kids come into. You take a look also at the city council in 1964, and you take a look at the city council now, and the city council now looks a lot more like Tucson. There's a lot more variety in the people that are representing us. And of course, 64-2 was when things were just getting chugging to do the renovation that would create the convention center downtown and displace a lot of people down there. It was a kind of turbulent time. In those days, Mexican Americans did not play at city functions, you know, but the Changos did. The Changos broke through, and everybody loved them because they were young, they were impressive musicians, they were polite, they were outgoing, they could charm the pants off of any room that they walked into. And they did so much, I think, in their own way to break down racial stereotypes, and to just give people an experience of the population that was all around them as human beings. And it was great for their parents who drove them to these events and so on. Now, Father Rourke had a bit of a drinking problem, to put it mildly. And so the parents started taking it upon themselves to drive, to various locations with the kids and so on. And at the same time, the board decided that maybe they should start charging for performances and put that money aside. And one of the board members was a fellow by the name of Joel Valdez, who would later become city manager. At that point, he was the head of juvenile detention. And a couple of the members of the Changuitos Feos were recruited, shall we say, because they had little dust up with the law. And he said to them, so what do you want to do? You want to be a mariachi or do you want to go to jail? And wisely, they chose mariachi. And so at any rate, Joel came up with this idea to invest that money and send every kid to college. Now, the first 8 or 10 kids that were in the Changuitos Feos, none of them had parents that had ever graduated high school. I take that back. One had a single mom parent who got her GED at 30 and went on to get a master's degree. So that was pretty amazing. But the rest of them, pretty much about 8th grade was about the extent of their education. Every one of these boys graduated high school. Every one of these boys went to college. They produced, in that first crop of Changuitos Feos, one doctor, one lawyer, several educators, the youngest state senator in Arizona's history, a U of A vice president, one of the engineers that designed and built the Hubble Space Telescope. This is what came out of the first crop. And as I say, that was just the first. Now, that group started in 1964, and it still exists today. And they are still sending kids through college to this day. And that is pretty remarkable. One of the other things that was remarkable about the Changos was they traveled. They traveled all around the United States. They traveled into Mexico. They had experiences that, you think about it, a young teen boy would not, have. They met governors and mayors and presidents. They played for Richard Nixon's inauguration, and a later batch played for Clinton's inauguration. They were invited by Disney to be the first mariachi group to come and play during the summer. And that association created the later, when they graduated from the Changuitos Feos, a group of the boys formed a group called Mariachi Cobre. And that group is now the house band at Epcot in Florida. Fantastic stuff that they did. And they represented everywhere that they went. They represented Tucson. And, you know, you hear the stories that they tell, and, you know, there were places in Texas where they couldn't go into a restaurant. And, you know, Father Rourke would have to go in and get sandwiches for all of them and come out and that sort of thing. And didn't really go into many details with them about why they had to do it that way. Just that's how it was. And that was the thing. So it was an interesting platform, I would say, this first group. There was so much more to it, though, than just learning music. They learned teamwork. They learned discipline. They learned critical thinking skills. They learned to be at ease in making public presentations. They had no fear of anyone with titles. One of the guys told me about when he was in college and they were studying about Mayor Daley in Chicago. And, you know, he's reading about the boss and stuff like this. And he says to the teacher, yeah, I had lunch with him when I was 13. And the teacher's like, yeah, sure you did. And then the next day he walks in with a photo of him and Richard Daley. And, you know, these are the kinds of real experience that they had. Most of all, they had a knowledge of who they are and where they came from, and a real pride in who they were. And believe me, that was a change. That was a real change. And on top of that, they had immense musical chops. So, and at the end, they got the college scholarship and they went off and started doing great things. Well, in 1979, another group of the Changos, as I say, you would play until you graduated high school and then you were on your own. Well, in 1979, there was in San Antonio, Texas, the first mariachi conference ever in the world. And Mariachi Vargas de Tecalilan was the headliner group and also the instructors at the workshop. So imagine if you were a rock and roll kid in 1964 and you got to go for a week and study with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks. You know, this is what it was like to be in that room with the members of Mariachi Vargas, learning your instrument from the guy that invented the sound of your instrument. That's incredible. And so they were excited as heck to be there for that. Well, there was a battle of the bands, and the battle of the bands included every mariachi practically in Texas, you know, every pro group. And the winner, as ordained by the Mariachi Vargas, was Los Changuitos Feos de Tucson, Arizona. Well, they came back to a hero's welcome, and you know, and they were rock stars in the Mexican community. You know, women have told me, "Oh gosh, man, we were like the Beatles. We would scream when we saw the Changuitos Feos and stuff." It's hard to imagine, but you know, it really was like that. And so everybody came back from San Antonio really, really excited and wanting to start it here. And several people had put out feelers with the Vargas to see if they would be willing to come to Tucson if we could put something together. It took 4 years. I think it was 83 when the Mariachi Conference finally got started here in Tucson. And the headliner at the Mariachi Conference that year was a larger than life figure in mariachi music, Lola Beltran. Greatest ranchera singer, in my view, of all time. Just a voice like a fire hose. I mean, just an incredible artist. Oh my God, when you would see her, you were just transported. She was truly, truly amazing. And she had a very special fan who loved her music from the time she was a little girl. And that was a young woman from Tucson, Arizona, named Linda Ronstadt, who listened to mariachi music from her dad's collection from the time she was a little girl. And when she became a rock star, her vocal style was all based on Lola Beltran. but she had never seen her live. And so Gilbert called her up and he said, they're having this mariachi conference here. Lola Beltran is singing. And Linda quit a week of her tour and came to Tucson to see her. So the microphones are squealing and everything's a mess. And the MC is a guy by the name of Raul Aguirre. Wonderful guy, and God bless him. Raul is recovering from COVID at the moment, and he's been having a real rough time, and we all hope that the best comes true for him. He's a really wonderful man. Well, anyway, Raul is doing the Raul thing, and Raul just loves to walk into a crowd and say, "Here's so and so, and here's so and so," and he spots Gilbert Ronstadt, and so he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Ronstadt Hardware. This is Gilbert Ronstadt. You may know his daughter, Linda. She's kind of a pop star and that sort of thing." The spotlight swings around and it hits Gilbert and spills over onto Linda. And the crowd sees Linda and just goes nuts. Well, Lola Beltran is backstage about half a bottle into Jack Daniels. And she hears the crowd going nuts and is like, "Why are they screaming? I'm not out there yet." And so they explain to her that Linda Ronstadt is in the crowd, and she says to them, "Go and get her, bring her back here." And so at intermission, there was Linda Ronstadt stammering like a 5-year-old kid in front of Lola Beltran and professing her love for her music and so on. And Lola Beltran says to her, "You need to do this." And she said, "Well, this has been my goal. I've really wanted to do this." And she said, "No, you really need to do it." And so she calls the music director of Vargas in and says, "This is Linda Ronstadt. You need to help her do this." And it took a couple of years. Linda went and studied Spanish very carefully. She really wanted to do it in the most respectful way. And as I say, it took her about 3 or 4 years. She went to a record company and they said, "This is career suicide. We will not have any part of this." So they would not put up a dime for it. So she did it out of her own pocket. When she finally put that out in 1987, just a couple months after I started at the Citizen, the album was called Canciones de mi Padre. And on its first day, it went certified platinum sales, which means certified 1 million copies were sold on its first day. It's since gone, probably, 15 or 20 times that amount. It is still the largest selling Spanish language record in history. And it was the Tucson conference that came out of the Changuitos Feos that started that. And another interesting sidelight of the conference, the conference is a benefit for La Frontera, the behavioral health company here in Tucson. And when the mariachi conference started, they were an extremely small organization. They were literally in the back room of a pool hall, helping people with behavioral health issues. And, they would do bake sales to raise money for the organization and stuff that way. Well, the mariachi conference starts and the board, gets the opportunity to have it be a benefit for them. And one of the board members says, "We're not in the concert business." And so Nelba Chavez, the head of the organization, said to him, "This music is what we play for people to get them to talk about their problems, because this music contains all of the stories of what they're going through." And the board member said, "Well, we just got into the concert business." And since then, La Frontera has become the largest behavioral health organization in the Southwestern United States, multi-state effort. And a lot of the initial funding that seeded that very rapid growth came in the early days from the mariachi conference. Not so much today, but that's one of the weird side benefits that has come out of this youth mariachi movement. Now, for me, as someone who is a music critic, I would go to the mariachi conference, and of course, the headliners were amazing and all of that stuff. But the real thrill for me was the kids, because I would go and see local high school bands and orchestras, and frankly, a lot of it was really, really terrible. And then I would go and I would see the mariachi kids, and they played in tune, and they sang in tune, and they could sing as a chorus or as individual soloists. They were virtuoso musicians. And year after year, I would say, well, surely it's got a plateau. Next year, it can't be as good as it was this year. You got to have some team building. And I swear to God, I think there were 37 so far, and I've missed 2. And every year they made a liar out of me. Every year it just kept getting better and better and better. And so it was the thing that I most look forward to during the year. And thankfully, I had 2 publishers, both Don Hatfield and Michael Chihak, who supported that. The mariachi conference is more than mariachis. It's also folklorico dancers. And they meet with masters of folklorico dance of the same caliber as the mariachi musicians who are teaching the mariachi class. The workshops are based on professional workshops, and everybody performs, both at the Espectacular show with the big headliners and in the student showcases. And so it became just a delight to watch when I was a kid. Or I feel like I was a kid when I started at the Citizen. I believe I had brown hair at that point. It's been a long time. I can't remember. But at any rate, I've kind of grown up in the music. I've spent about 35, well, more than that, about 40 some odd years of my life around mariachis, and it's been some of the best experiences of my life. Well, around the same time as her albums come out, a second group. What happened was the Changuitos Feos initially were run by Father Rourke, and then he was succeeded by Father Butler. Eventually, it went into private hands. A fellow by the name of Joe Mendoza, wonderful, wonderful man, took over the organization. He was a parent there. He led the group for 30 years. And man, what a saint that guy was. Joe, just, you can't say enough about how he kept it going. But there were rough spots. And so he had, at one point, they were going through a time when things were not secure about what was going to happen with the scholarships. And so some of the players left and formed their own group, a group called Mariachi Nuevo. And it was formed by the parents of a set of twins, Ruben and Richard Carranza. And Mr. Carranza was a drywall hanger. His wife was a beautician, but they loved mariachi music. Their boys, when they went to Davis Elementary School, spoke no English. Their parents were fluently bilingual, but intentionally only taught them Spanish so that they would always be able to talk to their cousins in Mexico, and so that they would always have that cultural connection. And they knew that when they got to school, they were going to pick up English in a heartbeat, and they did. And it was mariachi that taught them at Davis Elementary how to speak English and how to begin to present. Well, I just want to tell you a little bit about those 2 boys, because they went on to do truly interesting things. After the Changos, as I say, they joined Mariachi Nuevo. Ruben became a vice president of Procter & Gamble. He was president of the student body at the University of Arizona when he was there. He since then has gone on to form two beauty aids companies and has done amazingly successfully. And Richard, I'm gonna come back to in a moment and talk more about Richard as we talk about what came next. But there was another very key thing about Mariachi Nuevo, which was it was the first group that brought in women. It was an all-male tradition, and it was sort of blasphemy to bring women in. But the fact of the matter was they were better violin players, and over the years they became better at everything. What can we say? That's just how it is. And so in the 87 or in around 87, we see Linda Ronstadt's record come out. We see Mariachi Nuevo starting to bring in young women, and we see the board, the head of TUSD, starting to realize kids are excited. They're excited about this mariachi music. We've got these after school classes in a few of the schools. We need to make it a curricular thing. We need to make a real curriculum out of this and make it part of the music program. And so Richard Carranza, as it happened, was a social studies teacher in his second year, I think, back at Pueblo High School, where he had gone to school. And Richard was playing in mariachis around town, and some of his kids saw him and asked him for guitar lessons. And so, same kind of deal. He starts teaching them a little bit of guitar, and the next thing you know, they're talking about, hey, could we add some trumpets and blah, blah, blah. And he was lucky in that he had real support, and that Becky Montano was the assistant superintendent, and she was pushing very hard to get this curriculum going. And so she tapped Richard and Juan de Dios No Penny, and the two of them wrote the curriculum. And the pushback that they got initially was tremendous. The music ed people were like, well, this isn't a real thing. There's no written music. So they wrote arrangements. This isn't a real thing. There's no curriculum. So they wrote the curriculum. And that curriculum to this day is used all around the country. The books that they wrote show up in Georgia and Nashville and New York City and Cleveland and places you would not think that mariachis are, but they are. And this is a big part of Tucson's legacy to all of this. So Richard did that, and really Richard only wanted to be a social studies teacher. That was what he wanted to do. But the experience of creating the mariachi and the racism and the pushback that he experienced in doing that led him to get into administration. And so first he became assistant principal at Pueblo High School. I should backtrack and say one other thing. When Mariachi Aztlan began in 1992 at Pueblo High School under Richard Carranza's direction, the graduation rate at Pueblo was 45%. The graduation rate today is 96%, 100% for mariachi students. That's a heck of a change. And, I was talking a couple of years ago to one of the principals there, and he told me that he felt like the turnaround at Pueblo was Aztlan, that it gave the community so much pride. And it gave them as teachers the understanding that if you created great expectations, students would rise to those expectations no matter what they were. And so it became really an important part of it. Now there's biotech teaching going on there. There's all kinds of things that happen at Pueblo High School. It's really an excellent school. And as I say, this was a big part of it. Well, Richard was assistant principal. He was stolen away to become assistant superintendent in the Las Vegas school district. And he brought with him the gentleman who had replaced him teaching mariachi at SLAN. And together they started mariachi programs in Vegas. Well, there are now 8,000 mariachi students and 4,000 folklorico students in the Las Vegas school system, all using the materials that were developed here. I would say probably 60% of the teachers in Vegas are Tucsonans. So we're spreading the word. Tucson has become kind of the Johnny Appleseed through the Changuitos Feos, through the educational means, and through the mariachi conference to the entire world. Pretty remarkable. Richard then went from there, he became superintendent in Las Vegas, and then he was stolen away to San Francisco, where he was superintendent of schools for a couple of years. Guess what? He started mariachi programs. The thing that was peculiar about the mariachi programs in San Francisco was there are no Mexicans. There are lots of Central Americans, lots of Asians, a lot of African Americans, and that's what their mariachi is. And they play with gusto, and they're really, really tremendous. Well, then he got stolen away again. He became the superintendent of schools in Texas, in Houston, Texas, and was there through the floods. And you probably saw him on CNN a number of times, opening up the schools to people to come and take refuge and stuff. And then a week after the hurricane, opened up the school system and got back to work. He was stolen again a couple of years later by the New York City school system, where he is chancellor of education. It is the largest school district on earth, over 1 million students, 250 some superintendents of school. Also one of the most segregated school systems on earth. And so Richard worked very, very hard to try and make a level playing field for the students. And of course, COVID hit in the middle of that, and things got goofed up. It's just been a mess everywhere at this point, and that's a sad thing, but we will climb out of this. Get your shots, everybody. But Richard this morning resigned as Chancellor of Education in New York City. I just got word of that maybe half an hour before I came on to do this. And I'm sad that he's leaving, because he really is inspirational. One of the things that he did when he became Chancellor of Education that really rankled some people is he fired the Board of Education, because the Board of Education didn't look anything like the students in the city. And he went about finding qualified people from every race that represented the city, and really put together something that I hope will have some legs, and I hope will eventually get things out. What Richard will do at this point, I don't know. But we will find out in the next exciting adventure, as they say. And Richard, again, let me remind you that he spoke no English when he came to school. And so back during the Obama administration, he was invited with a group of educators to come and talk to the president about various needs of the educational community. And he spoke to Obama. His opening remarks were in Spanish. And then he said to him, "Mr. President, did you understand what I said there?" And President Obama said, "Well, I got a word or two." And he said, "Well, now you understand how English language learners are experiencing things in school. They don't know the language yet, but they will. And that's the challenge that they face. And he really struck a nerve with President Obama about that. I must be getting close to the end. I'm kind of gonna.
Yeah, a couple more minutes and then maybe have some questions. I know a couple of us are loving the story. I know we've actually provided scholarships to the Mariachi Conference on several occasions. Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah, so it's
and grateful to you for that. You know, all the support that they get. This is a really a world-changing organization. We should be very, very proud. I just wanted to tell you some of the other things that I found out about this. I mentioned that you never know what you're going to find out. As I mentioned before, parents become really transitional people in the community. These mariachi programs lift entire schools. The kids, you know, every weekend they're out playing for somebody's community need. You know, someone has cancer, mariachis show up. When they built the rail system in Tucson, we had 1 million mariachis and folkloticos celebrating that, something that never would have happened in '64. It's a different world because of them. Literally thousands of young mariachi and folklorico students have earned college scholarships and become doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, politicians, military leaders, etc. It just goes on and on. And the impact of these youth mariachis is profound and continuing. And it all continues to go on. We have a number of schools in Tucson that have excellent programs. There are no mariachi programs in Phoenix. That to me is amazing. But there literally are not. There are a couple of after-school programs. There are a couple of community programs. There is no mariachi education programs in the student district. So that's a big thing. I'll take questions at this point. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, we got a few minutes for questions. I was going to say we've actually had them come and perform at some of our holiday parties and so on like that. Yeah, this group definitely is well versed in the mariachis here in town. So, questions?
Comment?
Oh, Maria Elena, yes, I know you're loving this.
I certainly am. Dan, thank you so much for doing a recount of what Tucson has gone through in terms of education, segregation, advancement, and the city that we have today that is very different, but very wonderful. Unfortunately for us at the conference, because of COVID, we have not been able to get the 1,000 students that we get together every year. And for 2 years, we have not had a conference. But we're already working on planning the conference for 22. And at that time, again, I will pitch my story to the Catalina Rotary and ask for support and invite all of you to come and see what it's all about. Those of you that have gone with me have really enjoyed it, and I hope that extends to many other members. Thank you again, Dan. That was wonderful.
Thank you. I deeply appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. It is so much fun. You know, I have my family. I mean, we could not be more, you know, just bad Irish people. But you know, I've had several of my siblings come out during mariachi time, and they're like, "Oh, we got to get back next year." You know, it's amazing. It truly is. Thank you, and thank you for setting this up. I really appreciate it, Mariana, and support this. You know, with luck, I will finish the film by summer and be writing a book, because you know, you can't tell this story in 1 hour and 45 minutes. And so hopefully by fall, winter, we will be ready to roll and start hitting the circuit. And by next spring, when the mariachi conference comes again, I hope that we'll be presenting it at the Fox and have a huge crowd to come and see what the city of Tucson did and how it is playing a part in changing the world.
That would be absolutely an awesome combination. Absolutely. Questions, anybody? I would say also there's a note that Jeff put in the chat about the situation for Mr. Carranza. So just as far as some things sounds like he's had to live through with, unfortunately. So questions for folks?
It's true, but you know, Richard's a tough guy.
Yeah.
And Richard, you know, one of my favorite things that he did, he, you know, all the PTAs raised their own money for their own school, but not for the district. And so you had schools in Manhattan that had millions in PTA money and schools in Harlem that had nothing. And so he took that and distributed it evenly amongst all of the schools. And a lady confronted him at one of the meetings and said, "How dare you do this?" And he said to her, "Well, ma'am, I know you're upset and I understand that, but let me just assure you this. If you would like, I'll give you my card. You call me when you're ready for your child to go to that other school, and I will personally make that happen for you." So he knows how to handle people. He's a big boy. Any others?
Other questions?
If not, I am grateful to you all for putting up with me. I apologize that we don't have some video clips and stuff that I would have normally had for you. Go to mariachimiracle.com. You can find a lot of the video there and stuff that way, or just go to my Facebook page, Daniel Buckley, or to Mariachi Miracle on Facebook, and you'll find any and all information. Feel free to contact me anytime if you have any questions or just want to comment. You know, I'm also a big boy. I can pretty much take care of, you know, whatever slings and arrows come my way.
Daniel, thank you for this. I mean, we have participated and been around the mariachis. They're great. They get educated, they get organized, they get opportunities. It's a great program for kids growing up. I mean, it really is, and it's heritage for them too.
It truly is, and you know, one of the things that I mentioned Raul Aguirre before. One of the things that he says that's very profound is that what's significant is that this came out of the Chicano community. This did not happen in Mexico. In Mexico, mariachis were dying. But it's the revival that took place in America and in Tucson that really sparked the revival of mariachis in Mexico. So we have a lot to be proud of in what we've done.
And also in your honor, Rotary pushes polio vaccinations really, really well. And so we will immunize 10 folks in your name.
Thank you.
Presentation today.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
We're almost there. It's, you know, it's one of those nemesises out there, but it's slowly going away. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you all for having me.
Thanks. I think we have a sergeant today from up north. Maybe the confluence is the big and the little Jimmy, but hopefully he's up to it for a little bit here for the sergeant. Mr. Stoft.
Would it be all right if I unmuted?
I think you did. We can hear you.
Bless your heart.
Smiley.
You must.
Happy face. You're looking better, Bob. Looking good.
If I must. Oh, Anita, that's marvelous. You will do well. You will do well. Daniel Buckley, what a great program. Wish we had more time. I really do. I know we're running short of time, so I'll be brief. But I'm gonna ask about birthdays. Normally, the club president will say, Stoft will never get to it. He'll never get to the fundraising portion of the. So I want to get to the fundraising portion. So, are there birthdays? Did we recognize Doris last week in my absence? And if not, we should be recognizing Doris because her birthday is the 19th of February. Is she with us today? Would she like to comment?
Yeah, you forgot me last Friday.
Oh, well, we didn't forget you today, Doris.
Well, that's good. I will do a leg up.
Bless your heart. Happy birthday, Therese.
Pardon?
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. You can all sing. Oh,
Oh, we have others.
I can
Therese,
also
we have some others.
unmute too.
I wonder is, did we recognize Peter Pritz last week?
No.
No.
Oh,
February 20th is Peter's birthday. I don't know if he's with us today or not. If he is, he ought to have a chance to say hi.
Yes.
No.
No.
I had a birthday on the 16th.
What's that?
I had a birthday on the 16th, so I'll add it to my, my list that I'm making up for, sending in a check.
Why didn't I know that?
thanks, Pat.
Well, I may not be on your list.
I'm sorry you're not on our list. You will be in the future. Happy birthday. What about BJ Cordova? On the 26th of February.
That's like maybe today, huh?
Yep.
It's right
Celebrating
this minute.
elsewhere.
Right this minute.
Yes.
Anyway, happy birthday there. And I was AWOL last week. I turned another year on the 21st, which was Sunday. And by the way, the day before that, I got my first vaccination shot. So I'm feeling really good about that. It's a great start on getting my health back. Leg up for my birthday. What about anniversaries? Any anniversaries? I know of the fact that Ron and Sandy Goodside celebrate their anniversary on the 24th. Are there any other anniversaries? Okay, President Paul, happy dollars. Does anybody have any happy bucks?
Yes.
I don't know if, is Steve with us today?
I do.
Could you see a hand if it was raised and recognize it?
Pete's
I'll
got
do
his
my
hand up.
best. I see
Yeah.
Pete raising his hand there.
All three of my children were born in the month of February. So I'll pledge a leg up in honor of them.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Anybody else?
Andy?
I'll do some happy bucks for the Catalina Rotary Foundation in honor of the Ronstadt family, and still performing to this day is Peter Ronstadt and Bob and members of the family, and they're always fun to listen to.
That's great. I love listening to the Ronstadt cousins. They're around town here and there often, and if you can find them live, that's worthy. Any other happy bucks? I see Sharon raising a hand.
Yeah, can you hear me? I hope I unmuted. I will send some money to Catalina Rotary Foundation in honor of Ryla happening. And we had Audrey Tolulian's daughter at Ryla. We had Matt Matheson's granddaughter. We had Peter Pritz's daughter and a couple of other kids in the community. So in spite of the COVID, they pulled off a pretty spectacular Zoom Ryla last weekend. So congratulations to all the families that participated.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Sharon. Happy bucks anywhere else?
Irv.
Who was that?
Irv has to unmute.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a happy buck or a sad buck, but I had no idea that I've owned this album for well over 30 years. So, Andy, I'll send in a few bucks.
Irv, we'd like to know, have you ever played it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
But I probably haven't played it in the last 20 years, so I will today.
You got to reinstate yourself to that. That's marvelous music.
I think we wore ours out.
Yeah. Happy bucks anywhere else?
Yeah.
Hell.
My turn?
Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm reminded by some of you of a fellow that I used to work for. He was commander of the police academy. Little known guy named Pete Ronstadt. And so worked for him for a little while, and he went on to be chief and everything. And but he was always one of my favorite colleagues and co-workers and so forth. But the funny story is that he told us, probably accurately, that And I didn't have any idea that he played guitar or anything else. But the story came out one day and he said they wouldn't let him, that the city had gotten a hold of him and prohibited him from playing at any bars in town because it would sully his reputation. And so we didn't have Pete Ronstadt involved for quite a few years in there, but I think he's back on the trail now. So, but anyway, so I'll do a leg up for that.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
He is back on the trail, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing again. Any other happy bucks?
I do.
Great.
In honor of Black History Month, I would like to contribute to the Catalina Rotary Foundation. And February is also a special month for me. Our first daughter was born in February, a sister that was born in February. That same sister went home to heaven along with my mom in February. So I'll be sending a contribution to our foundation, and great to be a part of this Catalina Rotary Club.
Great to have you a part of this Catalina Rotary Club. Thank you very much. Any other happy dollars? Have we run the course? Very generous, folks, very generous. If we have, I got about 90 seconds. A key question I need to ask the group. If anybody gets the right answer to this, I'll put $5 in the pot. I've got the dollar bills, as you would know, right here. This is not idle chatter. It's a part of, you'll be irritated, but you might be informed. That's a part of. So on this day, 26 February, in the history of our country, does anybody know what national park came into official existence under?
Wasn't that the state of South Dakota?
Something like Grand Teton?
Grand Canyon? Grand Canyon.
Grand Teton, I think, or something.
Grand Canyon.
But that's not the most significant event that occurred. Who has the
Grand
answer?
Canyon.
On this date, Woodrow Wilson blew $5 to, was that Al? Yeah, perfect. Exactly right. Woodrow Wilson, 1919, created Grand Canyon as a national park. 1,900 square miles, deepest points over a mile.
I like Pat's answer, South Dakota.
Did we lose Bob? Where did he go? Oh, there he is. Okay. Well, I was going to say a couple more fun. Thank you all. Andy put the address in the chat. A couple other things just of interest. This will fit right in with you for Bob. Today in history also, Abraham Lincoln signed the National Currency Act, basically having the same currency. So the $5 bill should look the same both in North Dakota and Arizona. And then for all of us who are comfortable in jeans these days, today was Levi Strauss's birthday. So enjoy your jeans in memory of Levi. So then next week, we're going to actually hear from the folks at Erickson School as far as their reading program. Andy's coordinating that, so we'll be able to hear really some things that's going on. And I know several people have helped donate to get some of those proctors or the whatever you want to call it, the folks, the tutors or whatever, yeah. Interns to come in and help with that. So I think that hopefully when we get out of the COVID stuff, that should be a good thing. And then just to wrap up, and it's good seeing Tom flying in to make it. I also saw Carol, but I think she's dropped off. But some things to think about also, I was thinking about Tucson and what we all have here. I'm a transplant, love it here though, but some terms or information. cactus and all the varieties we see here, from the big saguaros to the barrels to the mamarellas or whatever, the little ones that you see that are kind of under the tree, you know, they're all over the place. And actually, and how many of you seen some of the endangered Pima pineapple cactus? They really look weird, but they are cute little ones that are out there too. And they're usually underneath some trees. Monsoon, how many people knew about monsoons before you? We haven't had one for a year or two, but monsoons. And then after the monsoons or before, what's that smell that we have in the air? Smells like rain with the creosote in the desert. It's something completely unique to this area. So, you know, that's something I think we all can relate to with what's going on. We all know about this term, snowbirds, not near as many this year. About half the people on my block haven't come back for the winter. They're all still staying kind of camped out wherever they ended up landing. And then a couple other things. It's a dry heat, but we know how to use swamp coolers to cool things down until July when the monsoons think about showing up. And then finally, just from some food for thought, chimneys, Ichis, and the Sonoran dog. Think about all those things. I think those are all unique to some comments and thoughts. Everybody have a safe and good weekend. March is next. Sign up if you haven't. Be diligent. Glad for you all to be here. We'll see you next week. Be safe. And I'll leave it up for a couple folks. I think Tony and somebody wanted to talk. Allison, it should be fixed later today so you can use both ends of your getting in and out.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I'm going to go up and look at it and yell at him.
Go look at Swan and yell at him.
Oh yeah, no, that's yeah.
On the way.
Hey, and Bob, you're colored. You're looking good, Mr. Soft. I'm glad to see it. You're looking like you're coming back. Yeah.
Bob, you look
Really
like
happy to see
Kilroy though. Bob, you look like Kilroy though. We need to get you a taller chair.
You were gonna, Tony. You're gonna talk. Who? Or you?
Me and Jeff Nordenson.
I will turn it over to you then.
Okay, thanks.
Let me figure this out.
Thank you, Dr. Bennett.
Thank you, sir. This was fun.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Paul.
Great program.
I should have the YouTube channel up within a week.
Oh, okay. I just, if you wanted to, we could just set up a time where I could set up a Zoom. If you don't have that capability, you may, but you and I could just do a Zoom offline.
For two people, I can do Zoom for now until hell freezes over.
Okay, I can do it anytime too. I just want to know if you wanted to set up a time to get together offline and go through the setup, or if you got it handled, that's fine.
Actually, I have to do that also with Steve Pender for some editing issues.
So yeah.
So that when I forget to turn off the recording like just now,